Life Rhythms with Ryan Skyy. Observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all.
Welcome to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, Ryan Skyy. This episode is sponsored by Mixillery.com, a remixing service. Remixes are powerful marketing tools that can introduce your song to a wider audience. But with so many producers and remixers out there, it's difficult to determine who's the right fit for your song, how much to pay them, and determine the value that they bring to your record. Things like, do they have residencies? Have they won awards? Do they have DJs and record pools supporting them? Do they have a genuine fan base? Mixillery takes the guesswork out of hiring a remixer by walking you through the process from start to finish. They find you the best fit for your budget, working with top producers and using a data-driven approach. Go to Mixillery.com to learn more and get started. Life Rhythms, it's a radio show that revolves around my personal growth journey. As a DJ and a producer, I spent a lot of my time observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all. I've been doing it in song form, and now I do it with my radio show. Each episode of Life Rhythms, we feature one song and one guest, and I choose a personal growth topic around the song. I'm excited for today's episode because I have British singer-songwriter Kelli-Leigh joining us, and we're going to be featuring her song Never Dance Again, which you heard a little snippet of it coming in to this segment. Kelli-Leigh, she's one of my favorite vocalists in UK dance. She has been featured on so many popular songs that BBC Radio 1 DJ dubbed her the voice of UK dance music, and I couldn't agree more. So we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to go into Never Dance Again, and we're going to talk about breaking up with an ex, the nostalgia that we feel, kind of that whole experience of like when you leave somebody or when you separate with somebody, looking back, kind of hindsight is 2020, how we look back and we start to realize things that we said that maybe we didn't mean, or maybe there were signs there that we overlooked that we wish we could go back and do things differently. It's certainly a reflection, a way for us to grow as a person and to kind of like learn about our shadow side, integrate that into taking that forward into our future relationships and kind of like being able to show up in a new, more healthy, evolved way. So we're going to dive into that topic. We're going to feature Never Dance Again. I'm going to bring Kelli-Leigh on and we're going to dive into this right after this break on Adobe Radio. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I am your host, Ryan Skyy. I've got my guest with me in the studio calling in from Britain. It is Kelli-Leigh. Hello, Kelli-Leigh.
Hi, Ryan. How you doing?
Good. We've got a little bit of a British invasion happening in season 4 of the show.
Ooh.
Last
Who
week,
else?
we recorded last week with Punctual and Lewis Thompson.
Love those guys.
And
Yeah,
then now we have you, and I'm here for it. I'm loving it.
I love it. It's really funny that you said Britain. I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking London. That's just like the standard. I mean, I am a Londoner, born and bred, and I am in London. But yeah, I just don't often hear people say Britain. I suppose we don't use that much here. Like if you say you're from the UK, you're either from the UK or you're from your specific city.
Okay.
Like London or Manchester or Leeds.
So
or
when
anything.
would
But
you
yeah,
use Britain?
I suppose you could say you're British. Like I'd be, but then I'm English,
Okay.
I suppose, born in England. But then, yeah, British is, yeah, it's just funny. Sorry,
Yeah.
crack on.
Well, I'm curious. I want to ask you about UK dance music. So one of the things I was reading about you while working on your debut album, you co-wrote and featured on so many popular singles that BBC Radio 1 DJ dubbed you the voice of UK dance music.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you have been featured on a lot of beloved tracks, but what I'm curious about, like, what is it about UK dance music? Because like when I started DJing, say 7 years ago, and I was just listening to all kinds of dance music, just figuring out what I liked. And I didn't know the artist, I didn't know where anybody was from, but I would say at least 80% of the time when I would come across a track or an artist where I was like, oh my God, I love this resonates with me, I want to play this out. Almost every time it was from the UK.
Right.
And then I put out my first single, Love Struck. And now when I look at the stats, the top city is London globally.
Right.
And I'm like, that's so interesting. Like there's something there. Like what are the elements of UK dance?
That's a good question.
Because it's been
I
part of
mean,
your top 40 more so than in the US, right? For a while.
yes, absolutely. There's definitely, I mean, the dance culture here is very specific. There's definitely a UK sound. And you really notice it when you go to like Europe, for example. Like, you know, the Dutch have a very different style. The Germans have a very different style as well. So there's very much this kind of talk of like the UK house sound, the UK house sound. And, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes when I've traveled to write in other places, those guys are specifically saying, I want a UK sound. I think, you know, it's very rooted in like there's a lot of piano house. There's a lot of depth in terms of the bass.
Yes.
We don't really have too much EDM. I mean, America, that's different because actually when I was out in the States recently in January, February, because I came out for the Diplo Grammy nomination season, I managed to get a credit on Diplo's album because I co-wrote Forget About Me with the Luna. So it was a Luna featuring Diplo. And explaining EDM, because you guys call like all dance music EDM, whereas over here we don't call dance music EDM. We're like very specific with our genres. So like you've got house and you've got tech house and you've got deep house. And then EDM to us is a bit more like, you know, your Hardwells or Swedish House Mafia and that kind of stuff. You know, Martin Garrix, there's, you know, and then house is more like your James Hypes, your Low Steppers, your Punctuals, who you had on. Like obviously Lewis Thompson has made a lot of house music. Even like Guetta is kind of, he's had his like EDM moments, but then he's also been tapping into his house moments more recently. So yeah, that's definitely something that I've spoken to Americans about, like distinguishing. Here we would go like EDM is very different to house.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. EDM is definitely a separate thing. When I think of UK house, for me, what I love is the depth of the vocal, the depth of the top line. It's like it's a pop top line, but it has more depth and substance to it. The soulfulness in the vocal and the deep bass lines, the grooviness of the tracks. To me, that's like classic UK dance.
Yeah. I think there's an element of it, obviously, that stemmed a bit from garage, which is a very UK thing, because obviously we know house stems from originally from Chicago, you know, and that soulful scene. But, you know, coming by way of UK, there's definitely an element of garage and two-step that's been developed into its own realm of house. And I'm not quite sure when it's like fully kicked off, because house has always been there, but there has kind of been this like reigning decade of dance now in the UK. It's very strong right now. Although like this slight techno area is starting to creep in, which is not my fave. So I definitely like everybody to lean back.
It's getting faster too. The music's getting faster, like very fast.
It's getting faster.
Yeah, it's getting that like 1999 like rave culture, right? Up tempo with up tempo.
Yeah, people are pushing it. I think I was working with someone the other day and like tempo of something was like 131 or something, and like house is usually obviously like it was when we started like 120, and now it's averaging around 124 125, and now people are pushing 130, and it's kind of like you're very close to entering like drum and bass territory, which is actually, I've just had some drum and bass cuts on Sub Focus's new album, and that's my first actual drum and bass outing. I've really enjoyed it. Actually, they're very different. Like there's very different elements for house dance and drum and bass, and I've been like learning the two worlds. Like I was in a session recently and for a drum and bass artist, and we were talking about the keys, and I didn't realize in drum and bass it's very specific to what keys will be used because of the sound system and how the bass sounds.
Oh really?
Yeah, like that was something I just learned. I was like, oh, and then someone I was working with the other day explained it. It was like the bass to drum and bass is the tempo to house. So like where house was averaging around like 123 124, and you're kind of in those remits, drum and bass has to be like the sub sound of the bass and how that resonates in their shows. So certain keys will never be used.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I could see that, like the G, the low G, certain notes resonate. Yeah, they resonate in a way, and you're saying it's crucial for the sound. There is an energy to it. Have you ever thought about what is it about UK culture that has helped to create this, you know, like this reign that you talked about? Because I have this theory that it's almost like Sweden is to pop music the way UK is to dance.
Oh, yeah. I
You
like
know,
that.
because
I
like in
totally agree with that,
Sweden, it's the
actually.
culture and the way that they're brought up and the way that music is taught and integrated into schools that has had a profound impact on their ability, on their pop sensibility. And so I'm curious, in the
Mm.
UK, like, what do you think it is about the culture there?
It's such a good question. I don't know. There's kind of like the rave is kind of like a bit of the rebel element. You know, the UK, well, we were before the crazy times of now, but let me not speak about politics and Brexit and our current government. But,
Yeah.
um, there's a bit of the, the proper English way. And I think rave culture is a bit of an escape from that. And, it's more towards your working class people and then, working class, middle class people. Because obviously the UK, one thing that's still very prevalent here is the class system. And that's
Mm.
always kind of been the way. And I think some of that culture is a way of, escaping that. Dance reaches all classes, obviously, but there's an element of that I feel which is a bit more like underground and working class and stuff. And it's just like and middle class, and it's kind of a way to escape and just come together in this kind of space to like let your hair down and lose yourself.
Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting. It's not like that here in the US. Very different here. It's definitely its own subculture.
Right.
And I also wonder because the US is so large,
Mm.
and I wonder that the music that makes it on the top 40, it's music that needs to appeal to the entire country, right?
Mm.
So I always think about it's like music that will resonate in middle America as well as like the East Coast, West Coast, you have the South. It's almost like they're all these different countries, but we're all together.
Yeah, I
Whereas
find your radio setup quite confusing
okay.
because you've got so many stations. Like even when I was driving recently, I did like a little stint by myself. I went LA to Vegas to see my friend perform and back. So I was just flicking through radio and you have so many stations, but there was like, I think I like hit the gospel area. So there was like 30 odd gospel stations. And then suddenly I'd like hit the rock area. There doesn't seem to be like, have you got like a one station? Because like here we've got like Radio One, Kiss, and Capital
Oh.
as our main three for like the top 40. And then you've obviously got like BBC Six and whatever for introducing people. And then you've got Radio Two, which is for like the older generation. And like you've got Magic, which is just like the classics. But like for top 40, you're looking at BBC Radio One, Kiss, and Capital. So what is you guys as like Radio One?
Our Radio One, I would say, would have to be maybe Kiss in terms of like what's the most popular, like Kiss FM.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have it's syndicated. I think it's the most syndicated in the country.
Mm.
But then like in New York, you have Elvis Duran. It really is regional. It's regional.
Okay, yeah.
I used to be the Billboard chart. The Billboard used to have the dance club songs chart. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And it unfortunately was a casualty of COVID. I was
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
it's no more. I was one of the reporting DJs to the dance club songs chart, and the way they did was they broke up the US into different territories, and then they would have like one or two DJs in each territory, and our job each week was to report to the chart our like top 20 songs of like that were the most popular songs that week that we play
Okay.
that we are playing out in our region. And the
Right.
idea was to like compile all this data and say, okay, these are the songs that collectively are doing well in the clubs. And if I give a song like my number one song has more points weighted to that than the number 20 song, and then they added up all the points. But when COVID happened, obviously there were no gigs, so we couldn't be reporting what was popular. And also it was kind of an archaic thing because it's not really data driven. It's based off of DJs, their opinion, I mean, it's not, and also it could be manipulated because we would have promoters calling us every week, pushing records onto us like, hey, could you please put this in your top, Whereas now the Billboard charts, it's numbers. It's what stations are playing these songs and what's happening on streaming and sales and those sorts of things. Yeah. So, but even then, it was regional. I think our FM radio is the same thing. It's regional, but we have so many stations It is kind of wild. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, it's definitely wild. I was like, this keeps going.
Yeah.
Um,
So
amazing.
I want to dive into your song "Never Dance Again."
Mm-hmm.
We played a little snippet of it coming into the segment, and I would love to talk about some of these lyrics. The main theme of "I'll Never Dance Again." What can you tell me? What's behind that idea of never wanting to dance again?
Yeah, it was. I really like to write heart-wrenching songs, and which is obviously a big juxtaposition from dance music, which is like, woo, yeah, get your hands up, we're having a great time. So but I really love to write some darker stuff and be really emotive. And so Never Dance Again is about realizing at the end of a relationship that you've messed up. And once that person's gone, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't roses. It was turbulent. But you played your part in that and causing some of that damage to the relationship. And once that person's finally gone and out of your life and their stuff is empty, like you go back to the flat and their stuff isn't, your t-shirt's not still on the floor, which I kept saying, because you put it in the friggin' wash basket, and then you sort of realize when that person's gone from your life, like, oh my God, I miss that. I realize the error that I've made, and I wish I could get us back together.
Okay, hold that thought. I'm loving this conversation that we've got going on right now with Kelli-Leigh. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to do a new segment we've got going on called The People's Perspective. I'm going to turn on a rideshare app, and I'm going to interview my passengers. I'm curious to see if anyone is going to be willing to share about their experience dating. It's time to find out. So we're going to do the people's perspective, and then I'll get back to my conversation with Kelli-Leigh. So turning on the rideshare app. All right, let's see who we get. So the song that we featured this week, it's called Never Dance Again.
When you gave me the name of the song, immediately my chest sunk. It was sad, for you not to be able to express yourself through dance or something, like Never Dance Again sounds sad to me. And it does give me the same feeling that I feel today being away from my partner. So due to my career, I don't see my partner for months. Sometimes walking around the house or wherever it is that I'm at, I miss the pair of shoes. And I miss fighting about putting your clothes in the hamper or folding it after you take it out of the things that remind us of the people that we love, and not having those around anymore. It's sad. I feel that today.
You miss them today?
I miss them today, yeah. Yeah. I've been with my partner we're working on year number 8, but we spend time apart and communication breaks sometimes. And it makes you question your relationship too, where are we in this relationship and where are we going? Sometimes I think about hey, maybe I continue doing what I'm doing and then we go our separate ways, or am I going to continue to come back home to you? Sometimes if we're not in a place where we feel close or where we're in a place of doubt, I probably go do something that would distract me and not make me think about my partner. But if I'm missing them, yeah, I'm going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, I miss you.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's cool that you brought up that it reminded you of somebody you're currently with. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We did it. We got the people's perspective. That was fun. I am excited now to get back to my conversation with Kelli-Leigh on Adobe Radio.
So yeah, it's a heartbreak song, really.
And so I'll Never Dance Again. It's like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to be joyful and open again. It's kind of like, I'm sad. I don't, it's like, I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing. Like I'm in this fate fog.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in terms of the lyric there, she's being very melodramatic because she'll never dance ever.
Right. Yeah.
Very,
yeah.
Very but then actually I kind of ended up putting that in the video. I ended up directing and editing and color grading the video myself. And the actor, a guy called Merch that came in, we literally met each other just before the first scene we did, which was in this bar. And then when we were in the kitchen, I just asked if he could dance salsa, and he could. And I kind of play with this thing. It's like the morning after we've just been together the first time. It's very flirty, and we do a little salsa dancing in the kitchen. So I quite like that kind of little tie back into the song, I'll Never Dance Again. Maybe it's that, you used to do a certain thing together, and that was that. But that's being really specific. But more, it was just it just sounded good. So
yeah. When you're writing songs, if they're inspired by real life, do you ever tell the person a certain song was written about them? Do you ever share that?
I don't know if I have. That's a good question. I don't know if I have actually. I've definitely had some inspiration recently from some friends. But I shall not say.
Yeah.
This song actually wasn't inspired by anything in particular. I just love to delve into emotions. I mean, I watch a lot of movies, and I find that's another way of switching off and from work and music, but it's still like my creative brain. I absolutely love watching movies. So if you see great actors or actresses, I really take on board their characters, and sometimes I like play that out in my brain and how that would look. Like I'd love to have one of my own songs in this kind of like heart-wrenching scene in the middle of the film where someone's really upset, and then it's just like no, and then like the door slaps and then they start crying, and then that's what my brain's doing.
Yeah.
Writing the song. But yeah, no, I don't think I have. I've definitely written some sexy stuff, which not let someone know. But so that's poetic license as a writer, isn't it?
It is. When I Love Struck, my single was about someone specific. And
Ooh, did you tell them then?
I did. And it was also, we were not dating anymore. So like I wrote the song when we were first dating. I inspired the song, and then it came out maybe a year later, and we weren't dating anymore. And I was really torn about it. Like I was just so proud of the song, and I wanted him to know that he inspired it. But I didn't have any agenda. Like I wasn't wanting to date again, and I didn't care really if it, like, I didn't want him to think I just wanted to share it with him. I was like, he inspired this, and it's a special song to me. So I remember like I told him it was about him. I think I played it for him, or I played like a remix or something. And it was a little awkward, but
did he reciprocate?
He received it well. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
he was like appreciative and proud of it. And I don't regret sharing it, but I don't know if I would do that again.
Yeah, that's quite exposing for yourself, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's quite raw because you've put the song on paper, you've released this record, you've made this record, and then to be like, this was for you, and that also you've got to see if he even liked the record. If he's like, I don't like it,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I don't regret doing it. Like it was a fun experience, and it was fun to share it, but it was kind of like I got it out of my system. Like, okay, I don't need to share my other songs. Like the people don't need to know who it's about, but it was kind of fun to just do it one time.
Yeah. There's got to be some kind of song in that though, surely as well. Like, what's the last time I share or something? Played you my record that was all about you, but you didn't reciprocate those feelings too.
Well, it's funny. I didn't want him to reciprocate. Like I didn't want anything of it. I just was like, I just thought it was sweet. I'm like, I just wanted him to know. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think that is a sweet thing. I mean, I'm quite honest, quite direct, and sometimes I feel like I'm a bit of an oversharer, and sometimes I'm like, why did I? But then you know what? We've got one life, and that's part of the experience of it, is feeling and is opening yourself up and being vulnerable and communicating with someone and giving a bit of yourself and looking for that. I call it like energy transference, and it's part of what builds you, and part of your character. And like you said, you've learned something from it. Like, I'm not going to do that again. Like, so that's an experience worth having.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
So with your song, we talked about I'll Never Dance Again. And I'm looking at some of these other lyrics. I've been going through changes that I know will mess up your head.
Mm-hmm.
I see tearing up old letters, wishing I could take back those things that I said.
Mm-hmm.
How are you, when it comes to relationships, do you tend to be the one to leave, or is it the other way around, or is it kind of like,
It's
a balance
funny
of the two?
because I suddenly got worried that you might ask me this question because thinking about the song, thinking about the song, I haven't been in the experience of the song I've written. I've actually been the leaver, but I have had my heart broken.
Yeah.
I definitely had my heart broken. by a boy that I really liked. I had my heart broken by an ex who had cheated on me, but then we sort of got back together, and then eventually I ended up leaving him. But in terms of like my long-term serious relationships, I have been the leaver. I'm currently engaged to get married
Congratulations.
next year. And my fiance has also been the lever. So we basically both
Oh, I
said-
think he's cute. I've seen you post about with him online. Yeah, you two
Oh,
are so
thanks.
cute. Yeah.
He's cute. He's an amazing producer and writer. And his studio is all analog to tape and vintage. So
Ooh, fun.
it's quite nice because we understand each other's worlds, but our worlds are separate. But then sometimes we'll work together. Like he'll bring me in to do vocals for something, or he does ad prod for me, or we'll write the odd thing together, but only for fun because we both worked with exes. And when we don't really fight, but when we first got together and first started working together, we found very quickly that we both triggered by exes that we'd worked with. So we fought very quickly. So we kind of vowed to just not work together. But now, 10 years in, we're in a lot more comfortable place and have grown up a bit. So now when we work together, it's more fun and we're more patient with each other. So that's been really nice. But yeah, I mean, in those first 4 lines, there's definitely elements of things you've said in relationships you wish you didn't say and wish you could take back. And I just really love the thought of those first 2 lines of sort of someone telling you about yourself in a relationship setting and just being like, you're this and you need to do this and this is the way you're making me feel, blah, blah, blah. And you just being like, absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with me. You are the problem.
Yeah.
And then realizing when they're gone, maybe I was the problem. And then
hindsight.
saying that to someone.
Yeah.
And
you
actually
have a
had-
lyric in
yeah.
here that I know you told me that this would happen back then in late December. Like this person said this would happen.
Yeah. And I kind of wrote the following line. Obviously, we can't say the word on radio, but it's like, I know you told me that this would happen back then in late December. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And, January is rubbish. It's just, especially in the UK, it's cold, it's bleak, there's nothing to do. Like everybody's broke, it's dark. Like the UK is obviously rain and grey. But that part of Christmas, which I absolutely love, so I've done a Christmas EP, it's my fave. But that part into January where everybody's just like, this is just so bleak. And I kind of really love the idea of sort of this kind of like, by that point, you told me that in December, we've broken up and it's just like Happy New Year. And also for me, it was another way of sort of moving on from my Christmas record, because obviously December is all Christmas and sparkles and Santa and joy, and that kind of thing. So it was really nice to come with Never Dance Again, which was like Happy New Year and, like my inner Grinch coming out. So I quite enjoy these little moments of juxtapositions of, even in my own internal thing, no one would really get that. They're just taking song by song basis. But for me, it was another way of just being like, Christmas is done. This is the next chapter, that kind of thing.
The new era.
A new era, yeah. But yeah, and also I kind of thought about some stuff sometimes I don't know if you need to share. I had an ex, had to get stuff off of his chest after I'd sort of left and whatnot. And I was happy. It was with my new partner, Aidan, who I'm with now. So it's not new, it's 10 years ago. But I was happy with him. I'd moved on. I was in a really good space in my life. I was with someone that I felt great about. I felt good about myself. My ex just had to meet up to tell me some nonsense. And he was quite controlling. And he always seemed to have his own way. And basically, he'd been having his own kind of therapy and decided to get stuff off his chest. He needed to let me know some stuff. And I just didn't need to know it. And I spoke to someone else about this recently. I think there was a similar situation in terms of having therapy. Someone else's ex got in touch. And I think they've been having some therapy and felt like they needed to get back in touch with an ex from ages ago to let them know, and sometimes it's like, does that really benefit the person that you're telling, or are you just trying to alleviate your own crap? Because my experience with that was he was alleviating his own stuff and saying he needed to tell me, but actually all he was doing was like relieving himself of his own burdens. And I was like, I don't need this.
Right.
So I think that's a bit of a a worrying thing sometimes. I think it's really good that we're more open about mental health issues and talking about stuff and therapy. But I do feel it's a little bit dangerous sometimes. I mean, I don't know, each people take things differently, but I think if you've closed the door on something and that's not someone you really want to be in touch with, trying to hit them back up because you've sorted yourself out a little bit and have come to some kind of realization to let them know all the stuff that you did, just kind of giving someone else your stuff to deal with. So I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, me neither. I have this theory that it comes down to tension and our ability to hold tension and soothe ourselves. And so for me, like guys that do that or people who do that, it's they struggle with feeling that tension inside, and they almost need to kind of like put it on you to relieve themselves. But the interesting thing is that if they get good at feeling and holding tension and being a little, like it's a little uncomfortable, but there's so many times in life where it's useful because it's like now you can speak in front of people, you can go up to a stranger and ask for their number, you can, there's just a lot of moments where your ability to hold tension is valuable and useful. So that's my theory.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it was very interesting.
We are at the end of the first segment.
Oh,
so
happened fast.
I know. I told you.
You said.
It does go by fast. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to continue this conversation with Kelli-Leigh. We're going to talk about your single, Never Dance Again, right after this break on Adobe Radio. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, Ryan Skyy. I've got with me British singer-songwriter Kelli-Leigh.
Hi, Ryan. How's it going?
We're back, baby.
We're back.
And we're featuring your song, Never Dance Again. Now, Kelli-Leigh, so when I first heard about you from my friend Autumn Rowe. And
yes, Autumn.
Yeah.
I just forgot how we connect. Yeah.
Yeah. So Autumn was a guest on season 1 of the show. We're now in season 4. And she was the one that told me that you were the uncredited vocalist for the UK #1 singles, I Got You, with Duke Dumont and featuring Jax Jones. And then also I Want to Feel, Second City.
Yes.
So that's how I first discovered you, because I already loved those tracks. I was playing I Want to Feel already out in New York City when I was DJing. And then from there, I've been following your career. You had that song with James Hype, More Than Friends.
Yeah.
Right? That was a top 10 single. Your song Runnin' with Low Steppa's got 47 million streams on Spotify.
Yes.
You have another song out right now, Calling for a Sign, with Subfocus.
Yes.
I love that song as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how I first heard about you, and you're certainly, like, in the beginning of this of I was saying how you were called the voice of UK dance. I think that's appropriate. And I want to talk about your new single, Never Dance Again, some more. I have a quote. Each episode I write a quote around the topic. So I'll read the quote and we can go from there. So the quote I wrote says, "Human memory is notoriously unreliable. Eyewitness reports, for example, are wrong 52% of the time. And when it comes to past relationships, our mind cannot hold on to negative experiences for too long as a survival mechanism. So we start to see our exes through rose-colored glasses. And it's no wonder people try to rekindle things with an ex, because while couples who break up and get back together statistically last longer than couples who never break up, there's also the fact that only 40% of couples actually give it a second go. So it's complicated."
I'd like to know who wrote that quote. Where did you get that quote from?
I wrote it.
Oh, you wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I write a quote. I write a quote for each episode.
Amazing. I might disagree with your rose-tinted glasses quote because I don't feel that way about some of my exes.
Okay. How do you
And it's
feel?
been a long enough time. I'm like, nah, there's no glass there. There's like, it's in the box.
But
over there.
do you have negative feelings for them?
No, I dealt with that. But I did for a very long time. I had a lot of tension. I actually a weird thing happened to me. Before I sang I Got You and I Want to Feel, I was on tour. I was doing BVs. I used to be a backing singer. I sang BVs for Adele on her 21 tour, Jessie J, Leona Lewis. I was actually on tour with Jessie J at the time. And I had a car accident. And that stopped me from being able to walk. I had a severely prolapsed L5S1 disc and a fractured pelvis.
Wow.
And then I got asked to sing I Got You. And I do believe stuff happens for a reason, because I would have been on tour at the time when they asked me to come and sing that record. And then I Want to Feel. But when I ended up seeing this back specialist doctor that I got sent to, because I kept getting misdiagnosed by quite a few doctors, and because I was quite physically fit, my injuries didn't present themselves in the correct way. So I probably should have been a lot worse than I was to begin with, but I got progressively worse throughout the tour because I kept touring. We were doing like 2 hours on stage. I was in high heels, all this kind of stuff. But there was one specific day. So this back doctor, Dr. Demir, is amazing. He's got this company called Biomedic Center. And he used to be a doctor at Guy's and St. Thomas's with his wife, but he believed that not everything needs intervention. He does believe in a holistic way, and you can do most of your healing that way before having to have, full intervention. And just before I saw him, I got told I was going to need surgery, and there was no way I was going to get better unless I had surgery. And I didn't have the cash to have private surgery. I would have had to go, to my local hospital, which wasn't the best. I was living in a place called Croydon at the time, and anyone who knows Croydon knows that would not have been the place for me to go and get surgery. So I'd got recommended him, and I went to see him, and he basically managed to heal me by doing lots of very deep tissue massage and acupuncture. I'd had a few cortisone injections before I saw him to try and bring down inflammation. But there was one day, and I really swear by acupuncture because of my experience with it. There was one day he put one of the acupuncture needles in a certain point of my back in my spine, and I could have sworn to God he'd put the needle in my disc, like in the bad area, because it just killed. I just suddenly felt so much pain. I was like face on the bed. Wow. I could barely move. I just was crying so hard. When you cry so hard you can't breathe, like your nose is all puffy and you can barely breathe. And I was just going, take it out. And he was like, okay, try and calm down. I was just like, no, please take it out. And he finally just took this needle out, and it actually ended up being a lot higher up on my spine. And he said that he put it in a specific point in my back, which was an emotional pressure point, or emotional point. And he said, beyond my injury, I had a lot of stuff that I was emotionally not dealing with. And one of them was this relationship I'd had with my ex. And I said I had dealt with it. And he was like, how do you feel about him? And I was like, I don't feel anything for him. I pretty much hate the guy. I like it. And he was like, it sounds like you feeling a lot for him, and you've got a lot of tension, and you've not dealt with what's happened with you and that whole situation and that relationship. And it was just really fascinating to me, because a lot of my life I've spent being a fighter. From the background I've come from, I've had to do a lot myself to make a lot happen in my career, and I've backed myself a lot. And even to now, like us talking about my own song, I really appreciate you having me on, because it's on my own label. Like, even though I sang all those records, no labels come to sign me. I've had to back myself and prove that I am, worthy of being an artist myself. I've had to prove I'm an artist myself. I've had to prove lyrically what I do, vocally what I do, what my vision and what my concept is. So a lot of my way of dealing with things has been, I've got this, I'm going to make it happen. And then I go to a certain point and have a little kind of breakdown, or just a burnout. And I just need to watch Netflix, not talk to anyone. And then I'll pick myself back up again and I'll go. So it was just really interesting at this point that this doctor had said to me that I had loads of stuff I wasn't dealing with. And emotionally, I thought I was great because I was just being really strong. I was moved on. Apart from, I thought everything was to do with this injury. But emotionally, I had a lot to deal with and a lot to work on myself beyond that. And it was definitely a bit of a turning point moment for me to sort of look internal and go, okay, I need to sort out,
How did you end up releasing it? Was it like the shadow, integrating your shadow kind of a thing, where you're exploring the unconscious?
No, I haven't even heard of that. So please explain that to me.
Okay. Carl Jung, Carl Jung was a student of Freud. So you
Right.
had Sigmund Freud was one school of thought with psychology, and then Carl Jung is considered the father of psychoanalysis, and he also studied dreams. But he teaches about the shadow, your shadow self, and a lot of times, like, you know how we project sometimes, people project, where we dislike something in another person, but actually we don't even realize, but that's something that we don't like about ourselves, and so we're kind of like projecting it. That's the shadow coming through. So your shadow is all of the parts of you that you don't like, that you're hiding from yourself and from other people. And he teaches that to uncover your shadow, to like find out what it is, and to integrate it into your conscious is the best way to become a whole, healthy person. And
That's very
so like
interesting.
if you experience trauma as a child and then as an adult, if somebody finds themselves getting triggered in relationships, or maybe they're avoidant or they lash out, these are all signs that there's like a shadow side to you that needs to be uncovered. But it's in the subconscious of your mind. It's not conscious right away. Yeah.
That's very interesting. No,
Yeah.
not heard that before.
So I'm curious, how did you deal with this pain and that you're experiencing?
I think I just had to start
Needles?
being less angry.
Just less angry.
I think that the issue was when I met this person, I was young. You know, I grew up with very low self-esteem. I was very badly bullied at school. I'd never fit in. I didn't come from a wealthy background. I'm a working class girl. You know, so as I mentioned before, like the UK is very classist, and you really feel it when you're a working class person and, you know, trying to hope for bigger and better for yourself and dreams and this kind of stuff. And you know, and also I'm a mixed race girl, so I definitely felt that in terms of being in the UK and some of, you know, the racist aspects of that. And also as a mixed race person, feeling like you're in between two worlds. And if you speak to a lot of mixed people, they often feel like it. I actually read Mariah's autobiography when that came out, and I really appreciated the way she touched on her experience of being a mixed race person, because I could really identify with a lot of what she said. And actually Meghan, Duchess Meghan, I forgot what she's I shouldn't know because it's all everywhere. I was going to call her Meghan Markle. She's not Meghan Markle anymore, obviously. But she, before she meant Prince Harry, had done an article, I think it was for like Elle magazine or something. And I hadn't really heard of her because I wasn't watching Suits. But I remember reading this article about her experience as being a mixed race person. I was like, oh my God, no one's really spoken about this before. And I, again, identified with a lot of things. So when you're mixed race, you do feel like you're in between two worlds in terms of the races and having to choose, but then you're not white enough and you're not black enough, and then you know there's all these kind of things that are put on you from a very young age, and it's supposed to be like, what's your identity, who are you? You know, I got often asked, why is my hair like this? It's natural that my hair's like this. It's a bit wavy if I haven't blow dried it out, and just things like this. You're like, I don't, what was my hair supposed to be like, and all these kind of things. And I think by the time I met him, I had such low self-esteem that I couldn't actually believe he liked me. And he was an older guy, and he was a producer. When I say older, it's like I was 18, 19. He was like 25, 26.
Okay.
And I was just blown away by his energy and his, you know, presence and magic and all this kind of stuff. And I think by the time I'd sort of left that relationship, I'd realized the certain manipulations that had happened and the way he was trying to control certain things about me. And when I started to grow into myself a bit more and start to find myself and go, no, okay, you know, I'm a good singer with what I do for myself. And I was performing on stage and starting to feel like, oh my God, okay, I feel a bit sexy. Or I feel like, you know, I was starting to grow to become a woman. And that ended up causing a lot of arguments because, you know, when he met me, I sort of looked up to him as this almighty, the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And then by the time I'd left, I think there was a lot of attack of who I was. And I think I'd spent so much of my life of people telling me I wasn't good enough, or trying to make me feel small, or trying to put me down, that someone I'd put so much trust into, that I really looked up to, that I ended up having this, you know, deep relationship with, ended up doing the same thing to me when I started to pull away and started to grow. And so I think I just carried a lot of anger of that for a long time. And, you know, I found moments of that for myself in this career, and in terms of, you know, the UK music scene. It's just certain people I feel uncomfortable around because they remind me of that kind of dynamic. And so I do find myself now, I'm a little bit more guarded. I'm very open, I'm very honest, but if I do feel this kind of thing I'm not quite sure about, I will be guarded and I will shut down a little bit because of the people I think I've experienced growing up for my life. It's just like, I definitely react badly to certain type of energies, but it might be, you know, I like people who seem a bit inconsistent with their behavior and that kind of thing. I don't deal very well with that. And yeah, I think I just had to learn to let a lot of that anger go, and also not feel like I'm necessarily in fight or flight mode, because I think I've spent a lot of my life in fight or flight mode to the point that it's just normal for me. It's natural for me. The, you know, the adrenaline buzz and keep going, and I'm working and I've got this to do and I'm doing this, and then this. And then like when I met my other half, Aiden, we're very yin and yang. We're very different, but I've helped pull him out of his shell a little bit and focus on what he's doing. But then he's helped calm me down. Like when we first met, I was doing things like answering emails at 3 a.m, and then like my one day off from a tour, I'd booked to go and sing at some kind of event or something. So I was driving like 3 hours across the country to do my one. And he was just like, this is mad behavior. Like you need to chill out. And then 8 months into our relationships, when I had the car crash, it was like the universe just went, okay, woman, stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think it's been a process of trying to unlearn stuff that I've learnt to survive growing up, and realizing that I'm not in the same spaces. But I think when you're used to that, if that's been part of your life, it's very hard to unlearn learned behavior, isn't it?
It is. When you talk about being a working girl and also the fight or flight mode and kind of the overworking aspects, I'm wondering, was there an element of that was kind of like your worth was tied to your work? It's like
1,000%.
Yeah, I speak from experience, because I went through the same thing. It's almost like I felt like I had to be the perfect DJ and the perfect boyfriend, and I had to work really hard, and if I was hard on myself because I attributed my worth to my work and what I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%. I've really felt that. And it's been my way of proving, you know, that, you know, what those people said about me isn't true. I've proved what I can do, and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I remember one girl years ago when I was using Facebook. I haven't used Facebook in years, apart from like my artist pages on Facebook. Apologies for anyone who does go to my artist Facebook page. I'm more of an Instagram girl. So
same.
yeah. But I remember that years ago when I was using Facebook and like stuff had happened, I think it was like one of those records blown up or whatnot. This girl that used to be really, I don't want to swear, towards me, had literally messaged being like, oh wow, like you smashed it. Like if I knew that you was going to be like really big, I wouldn't have been like that with you. Blah, blah, blah. Obviously left that on read, or if she could see that I read it or whatever. And I was just like, okay. But yeah, I've definitely felt I've made, so I think, you know, when I was a kid, my thing was singing. Singing was my safety net, was my comfort zone. It was what I did excel at. And so, you know, I found such comfort and safe space in that's become part of my life. Like my career, it's what I get the most joy out of anyway, but it also did become my, like, this is how I prove I'm good.
Yeah.
And then I do still have to have like words with myself, because, you know, as performer and being in the public eye and being creative, as you'll know, it's like you do often feel you're not good enough because you haven't been wearing the latest fancy thing, or your stuff didn't look edgy enough, or you weren't being cool enough, or you weren't being aloof enough, or you weren't being accessible enough. And, you know, there's these things that you're just constantly, and whilst you find safety in being like, I've smashed it, this is my relevance, you're then going, but was it that good? Or was I really that cool? Or did I sing that note the best? And so I've definitely struggled with, like, I am very strong. I'm very, you know, proud of what I've managed to do, but definitely still battling those inner voices of but you could be doing better though, but your content's not good enough at the moment, but then you should have looked fitter in that thing. And that voice.
Yes. Yeah, the stories that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And for me, it was also a safety thing. Like the work I did, my worth in my mind was tied to that, but also it was a safety thing because I didn't grow up in a well-off family. I was the oldest of 5 and I had to work for everything that I had, but I've experienced like losing everything. And even in the career that I'm in, even in the music industry, like there's so many ups and downs, like I moved to LA with no gigs and struggled for months to get work. And then I got a residency and then I lost it and I didn't have anything. Like I've experienced gaining things and losing things and kind of like the stress of the financial stress of that. It's like that also pushed me to work hard because I was like, I don't ever want to feel like that again. I don't want to go like that again. I need to like be proactive and like have different multiple streams of income and different things that I'm doing so I can create like safety for myself.
Yes. I love that. And I find that so inspiring because that's, that's been part of my truth. It's the thing is we don't have a fallback plan. When you come from that kind of situation, there is no fallback option. There is no daddy you can call who's going to just help bail you out here or blah, blah, blah. It's literally like the onus is on you. And that's part of the pressure. Like one of my best friends, her and I talk about this a lot. Like she's my oldest friend. We went to primary school together. And, we were in similar situations. And what's funny is when we were in primary school, we clashed. We really, really didn't like each other at all. And then when we re-met each other at a school reunion about age 21, we just like this. And then as we got to know each other, we realized we were going through such similar things. Maybe that's the talk of like your shadows. What you were saying is like, maybe we could see that in each other. So we just like repelled, it wasn't, when you have that kind of situation, I think people who've not been in that situation will never understand what it's like to not know you've got a fallback plan. And that's why you kind of end up being amazing at what you do. And like what you've said, to like take yourself off to LA and the stuff you've achieved, it's incredible. But then those kind of negative things that we do for ourselves, that we put ourselves under so much extra pressure because of that deep-seated fear of thinking, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I can't go shopping for food and and be fine and stuff like this. And it's funny you said you're oldest of 5. I'm the oldest of 4. So I'm sure you would have then experienced that growing up with your parents being the first one and stuff like that. There's a lot of weight,
and our parents learning on the job with us and then getting getting better with each kid or maybe a little more skilled with each one. We experienced that as well.
Absolutely. I think I saw a few like memes, and there's a few TikTok things which I've really laughed at about being like the oldest child or like the middle child or whatever. And it's definitely true.
Yeah.
Like the siblings might not want to admit it, but it's definitely true. Like, and just even like looking out for like your brothers and sisters as well. And what's been really nice is sort of like the relationship that I've developed with my siblings as they've got older as well, and they've understood me more based on their own experiences of moving out of home and stuff like that. That's been a really nice thing to be like, see, I wasn't crazy and I wasn't being just your annoying older sister. I was just trying to be like, this is what I had to do with my life.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it easier for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
have a couple minutes left, and I want to ask you before we're done about releasing music independently. I was reading in 2018 was your first single, Do You Want to Be Loved Like This? Was that your first independent single?
I'd say yes, it was. But actually, I released an EP called I Am Here when I was on tour with Adele. But that was like just a CD copy and thing. So I suppose that was technically my first independent release.
Okay.
But doing it properly, Do You Want to Be Loved Like This was my first proper single.
Okay.
Setting up a label and really,
The reason I asked is because, I have the single Love Struck. I have an EP that I finished, and I'm in the process right now of deciding whether to put it out independently or whether to put it out with the label that did Love Struck. And the reason why I'm torn is because like Love Struck is doing well, but the label they didn't do much for it. I mean, they
Yeah.
did. And also before Love Struck, I didn't have any singles. I had like no track record. So I'm super grateful for them signing it. They did like do playlisting, and the playlistings definitely had an impact on giving it the kind of that push. But other than
Right.
that, there wasn't anything else done. So I'm on the fence of like, should I sign my EP to them and give up half of the mastering, or should I go the independent route and really like hustle it myself? Like these are kinds of things that my team and I have been debating. So I know you've released music independently, and I would love to know what your experience has been like.
I mean, the thing I love about independence is the creative control.
Okay.
It's amazing. You thrive off it. You can really be accountable to yourself. So like, have you got everything in order? Have you got like the mix and master done correctly? Have you done all the artwork in time? Have you uploaded in time? Have you, all of that kind of creative side of it, I love. But then the downside is it is all on you. So like you're saying that label did great with playlisting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, so that's a big key part of it. So it would fall down to you. Like, what are your contacts like? Do you have relationships with people already for you to put this record out that you can slot on certain playlists? Certain people at radio, you've been in radio for a while, that are going to be able to support the record. Those kind of things are very stressful when you are the artist and you're the label, because I found sometimes it's very difficult to have, as the artist, the aloof artist relationship that you want to have with people and just be like, yeah, just, could you speak to management or whatnot, and be able to just focus on, I'm just focusing on my songs, and that happens elsewhere. You're then the one going, hey, how's it going? It was great to meet you at that networking drinks thing. My song's coming out. Would you play it? And then you kind of feel like you're not diminishing your art, because I believe in it, but you do suddenly lose some of that barrier of protection, because you're kind of putting your stuff out to people going, really hope you support this record. I've done it myself. So I think it's very much like, what's the label going to bring that you can't do yourself?
Yeah.
If you felt like they had a good track record with the last single, it's worth maybe giving it a go on a single.
Oh.
And then and then maybe holding the EP back. And if that goes well, then you could do a whole EP. If not, then you could go with another one. I mean, it depends on what you feel like you're going to achieve and what your goals are.
That's the thing, is like, I feel like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, it worked well the first time, maybe try it again.
Yeah. If you've got a good relationship with them and it did well, then you need to like work with them with that. And then, in terms of what are you feeling like they didn't do enough of? What was missing?
There was no marketing aside from the playlisting. Like they did the artwork, they did the distribution, they did the playlisting, but there was nothing that I know of. There were no like campaigns around the song. I didn't get synced anywhere. I just feel like the song there's so much potential for that song beyond the streaming, but again, like I said, I didn't have a track record. I had nothing out. So I wouldn't expect a label to be like, yeah, we're going to put all this budget behind, a first time single. But now that there is a little bit of a track record, maybe it would be different this time.
I think maybe part of you would have to, maybe you'd have to piggyback off of that as well and bring some of that yourself, as opposed to doing it fully independent.
Yeah, but maybe like a hybrid thing.
Yeah, maybe a hybrid thing. But then, you could just go for it and put out yourself. I mean, I wouldn't recommend, if you're releasing the first time as an independent, going for an EP straight away. I would recommend doing single by single, building that, and then dropping your EP, because that way you can build the, momentum and relationship with people that you're speaking to about your music.
Right.
And then when you get to the EP, let's say like, is it 4 or 5 track EP?
It's five songs, and we were going to do 2 singles. We were going to do single, and then release the final 3 as the EP.
Cool. I mean, in today's climate, for me, I think you could do 3 or 4 singles.
Okay.
And then the EP becomes one with an extra bonus track.
Okay.
So like you could be, single, and then the final one, which is the title single of the EP, with 1 track that wasn't a single. And then that becomes its own little body of work, because then you're constantly pushing. I mean, like in today's market, the single thing is so important with the Spotify and Apple and your playlisting and all that kind of stuff. And that gives you a way to like communicate with your, fan base and your audience, and start really building that, so that when the EP drops, it's amazing that people are listening to things, because if you just drop that now with like one single or two singles, based on your playlisting, those ones are going to have the numbers. And then you drop that EP, how many listeners have you actually got? How many of those are actually followers of your page, followers of your music, or are they just passive listeners through the playlist that you might have got, which is also awesome. Hopefully people do discovered there. But then when you drop the EP, are you going to have like 1 million streams here, 400,000 here, 12,000 there?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I think if you're going to do independent, then you need to do some more steps. With the label, I think if you're going to do EP, might not have to do as many steps because they've already built up some of that infrastructure with your last single, but then hold them accountable, but also hold yourself accountable, because unfortunately everyone I'm speaking to, no label's doing it all anymore. It's unfortunately quite sad, the stuff that I'm noticing. I've had some songs on my own label be more successful than songs that other people have signed to labels. And then I'm like,
Did you release singles independently when you had contacts through the other work you were doing, or did you kind of build them as you went?
I kind of built them as I went, to be honest. Okay. I mean, like when I first put out Do You Want to Be Loved Like This, it was such a learning curve. And then the single accidentally did so well in Dubai in the UAE, because Chris Fade, who's a friend of mine's, amazing radio presenter, he championed the record because it was off the back of More Than Friends. And I ended up doing Red Fest out there and supporting Fifth Harmony. I think actually supported Fifth Harmony at one of their last few shows.
Wow.
In Abu Dhabi. And the song started trending out there, was on the hot UAE 30 chart, and people were phoning up to request it. He was like messaging me going like, people love this record. It was trending on Shazam. But then the massive downside of that was because it was independent, I had no idea what to do. I did not have support from the distributor. That we really missed an opportunity there, because that could have ended up being a really successful single. So each time I've kind of learned, where my money needs to go for, where my ad spend needs to go. Like, is this a record that I need to pump a load of cash into, or is it just a record I need to put out to continue my story and then move on to the next one? And like each time it's just all been a learning curve. I mean, like Never Dance Again, I had Radio on Track of the Week here with Ariel Free, which was amazing. And it's one of my, best supported records in terms of that. But then it's one of my lowest streamers at the moment because it didn't manage to get on certain playlists. And it's like things you're kind of just going, but the song stands out for itself. And that's part of the narrative. Yeah. And then I'm already planning the next single. And then hopefully when people discover that, they'll discover Never Dance Again. So it's constantly like, the thing that I'd say for any independent artist is this is all a body of your work. And I think it's worth shopping stuff to labels. It's great that you've got a connection with label already. I shop my stuff to labels, and if I don't get the answers I want, whatever, I put out myself anyway.
Okay.
Because you can't be hindered in your growth. And artist growth and artist development is how you grow your fan base and how you grow connection. People understand your sound. Mm-hmm. If everything's stuck on the hard drive waiting for someone to do something for you, you're not developing as an artist. So each time I put out a record, for me, it's me showing who I am. I keep calling my songs chapters. This is the next chapter. This is the next chapter. The next record will be a big summer banger, and then the one after that will be something darker and moodier. But it's me showing who I am as an artist, and come on that journey with me. And then when one pops off, or if a feature of mine pops off, I've got my back catalogue there for people to discover me and fall in love with that, as opposed to not having the stuff out there.
Yeah, this is brilliant. So, yeah, thank you for sharing this. The independent artists that are listening in, this is going to be very useful for them and for me.
Oh, no, my pleasure. I just back yourself always.
Yeah.
I mean, like, since I sang More Than Friends, I was hoping that someone was going to come along, swoop me up, sign me, develop me, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't happen. So I had to develop and back myself. And I wouldn't even be having this conversation with you right now if I didn't start releasing my music in 2018. So all these things that keep happening are for putting the record out, and each one of those is the stepping stone to the next moment.
Yeah, that's super inspiring.
Oh, I'm glad.
Kelli-Leigh, thank you for coming on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I'm looking forward to your EP and the next single.
Thank you. For the listeners, we're going to be linking to your social pages on streaming platforms. But for the listeners that are listening to this on the radio, can you tell them how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, kelly-leigh.com, or I'm at Kelli-Leigh UK across all socials. So that's KELLILEIGH UK. And the same for your favorite streaming platforms, whether that be
Yes.
Spotify, Tidal, Apple, Deezer, or whatever. I'm Kelli-Leigh on there. And YouTube, go and watch my videos because I spend a lot of time editing those. So please do go and tell me what your
Okay.
favorite videos are.
We will. Okay. Thank you very much. And we will see you next time on Life Rhythms.
Thank you very much. Thank you.